Diversify your grind, why it's important to focus on more than just one area at a time. So what prompted me to make this video is I've recently signed up for some medical trial, which I'll explain in a little bit. And basically, I'm not allowed to gym for the next 5 days. Well, at least 5 days before I go in for the screening, which again will also be elaborated later in the video. So it's kind of a bummer how the whole gym grind thing is put on halt for the next almost week, but that's okay because I have other areas of my life that I'm progressing in. Allow me to explain. So I'm currently recording this voiceover on the 30th of January, so I'm kind of smack bang in the middle of this little chart you're seeing, and basically just outlines what I've done in the past few days and what I'm going to do in the upcoming few days. So, as you'll see, on Thursday I had work, and then that's when I had this phone call. Like, I had it during work. Now, work was nice enough to let me just take this call, and it took about like 40 minutes, which I wasn't expecting. I honestly thought it was only going to take about 5. But essentially, it became like a screening over the phone. So they just ask you a bunch of various questions, which I'll elaborate on later. So I had that, and then I had gym later that night. Now, normally my upper sessions take 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on how many accessory movements I do. But this session only took an hour because I had to go home and have dinner with my family because we never really have, that much dinner together. And I kind of had a lot on my mind. Now, normally when I have a lot on my mind, I can just work out and just get through the whole session. But this time, during the whole gym session, it's kind of all I could think about. And that's only just because my routine is going to be really shaken up lately. So I sort of need to plan that ahead. And sometimes I just can't get into my current groove without making sure that I've got everything sorted for the upcoming weeks. If that makes sense. If you've got just a hectic schedule, well, I mean, my schedule's always hectic, but you've got like an inconsistent schedule that's out of your norm in the upcoming weeks, you've kind of got to plan ahead and plan around what you're going to do then. So anyway, that's why the gym session was only 1 hour. 2 main reasons: family dinner and mental space just was clogged with non-gym related thoughts. Anyway, Friday, worked at the office, and then I had a laser appointment. It was laser number 8 because that's the 8th laser session I've had. So it's a little bit expensive, but it really helps with the aesthetics, which is, another component of my 6 main areas. So one of them's gym, but I guess you could just factor aesthetics in general, and I'll elaborate on that later in this video too. And then I hung out with a friend because as the semester progresses with study, I'm less and less inclined to actually hang out with people. So I'll hang out with him now just while it's a little bit early and get that over and done with. And then I probably won't see him until after my exam, which will be in about 3 months and a couple of weeks at this point. So Saturday, which was yesterday at the time of recording, I worked at Woolies 8 to 5, and then I just worked on this side hustle. I basically just grabbed some info, looked at some bloodwork information stuff, which you're about to see, and I also did some meal prep. Now, normally I gym on a Saturday night, and then I'll usually do some sort of study or something, and normally I'll meal prep on the Sunday just because I get home that little bit earlier, which gives me a little bit more time to do the meal prep because I don't really want to have meal prep eat into my actual sleep time. So yeah, it felt good to get meal prep done on a Saturday night though. I used to actually meal prep Saturday nights, but the thing is, with 2 hours of gym after a Woolly shift, by the time you get home and shower and everything, if you were to start a meal prep, you would really eat into a bit of your sleep time, and sleep's very important. Obviously, we all know that. And especially starting early at Woolies the next day, I have to get up at 5:50, whereas at least if I meal prep on the Sunday night, I get up at 6:20 on a Monday to get ready for work. So that extra half an hour really helps out. It goes a long way. Those of you on the grind will know how much half an hour of sleep is. It's just so good. Well, half an hour of extra sleep in the morning, not a half hour sleep, obviously. So anyway, today I worked at Woolies 7 till 4, and then I basically just whipped up all of the images I wanted for this video. And now I'm sitting in my car. It's 8:22 p.m. at the moment, and I'm recording this, and I hope I'm done by 9 because that's when it starts to get really dark and the mozzies start biting. Because I'm recording this in my car and the windows are open because it gets too stuffy. But anyway, tomorrow I'm working 8 till 4:30 at the office, and I got to do groceries. I normally do that on a Tuesday night, but I'll just get it done Monday because I don't have gym tonight. So, well, I won't have gym Tuesday night because I normally grab my groceries after I go to the gym on a Tuesday night. It's just usually my tradition thing. But anyway, I'll work on my side hustle. Now it says side hustle there. It's just because I got a lot of videos, or like a few videos I want to get out really soon, but I don't know how that'll go. And chances are I might actually get fatigued from whipping up images, getting info and recording audio. And I might want to switch it up and do some study instead, which is an important note that I'll elaborate on later. But the point is, I can't gym. Tuesday and Wednesday, yeah, same. Normally I gym Tuesday, Wednesday, but I have to work on something else because I can't gym for this medical trial. So I've just quickly taken you through the 8 days that span across this little image. Like I didn't mention the last day, the Thursday screening at the medical center. That's pretty self-explanatory. I rock up to the medical center and I just do more tests. They take my blood work, yada yada. You know, boring stuff. Anyway, you can see that underneath that image, it's got over the span of 8 days and it shows basically everything that I'll get done in this time. So the $520.79, that's my gross pay from Woolies for doing those 2 weekend shifts. Now I'll put up a pay slip on screen now, but as you can see, a lot of people don't really understand it, but basically you've got like a base rate of like 22.64 something or other from my memory. I don't know, it'll be on screen, you'll be able to see it. The 25% is basically the little extra penalty I get for working on the Saturday, and the 6 hours at 50% is my Sunday rates basically, but the 100% is for working between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. on a Sunday, because at least the retail award knows how much of a pain in the ass it is to get up that early on a Sunday when you could be out clubbing instead. So they pay you a little bit extra, but you know, that doesn't really bother me because now we're on the grind set. The $1,077.30, that's the pay I get for a week at the office. Now this is all gross, so it's before tax, so obviously I don't see all of this money, but you know, it's still pretty good, hey. Now, the +5 career days, now the reason I didn't just say working 5 days is because this is extra experience for the resume. So those of you in the whole corporate world will know the importance of having years of experience on your resume. It'll really help set you apart in the job market, and it makes it a lot easier to get jobs later on. So these 5 extra days that I worked are adding bricks to the building. It's ticking boxes. So, I mean, you could say, well, you could take annual leave, but you get the point. It's slowly progressing in the career overall. Now, I obviously didn't write that down for my part-time job because, well, it's kind of a dead-end job. Like, I can't really go up any higher now, can I? Unless I was to become some sort of second in charge, which is a full-time job. And, yeah, no thanks. But I did put 20,000 plus steps. Now, there's various benefits to walking, which I won't really go on about in this video, but that's still quite active compared to a lot of people. So during the span of these 8 days, I've been a lot more active than most people. Now, I will take a fair bit more than 20,000 plus steps throughout this whole 8-day span. But these 20,000 plus steps alone are just purely contributed to the weekend at Woolworths. Now, I had one gym session, which was that first Thursday. Now, obviously, normally this is more, but I really can't. I was allowed to gym the Friday if I could, but, you know, I had laser and I had my little social event, so, yeah, wasn't allowed to. I've also done some extra side hustle work. which, you know, you can obviously see based on the fact that this video will probably be out before the 3rd. And that last little line, progress in a rare opportunity for science. So that's referring to this medical trial I'm taking part in. I'll elaborate on it, you know, in the coming slides, but, you know, that's quite a bit of progress overall in this span of 8 days, despite the fact that there's not really a lot of gym progress. Now, you might be starting to see where I'm headed with this video. That last line, still progressing, perhaps not on my usual path, but I'm still ticking boxes. So this is why you stay diversified in the grind. But this will also be elaborated on later. But I think you're starting to get the point. Just because I can't gym, which is one of my main grind areas, doesn't mean I can't keep grinding. So anyway, about this study, it's done for some science group called the Nucleus Network, as you're seeing on screen now. I've blurred out any potential sensitive information. I've left the drug code in there because that's not really sensitive. It's, you know, public information really. You can Google it if you want, but it's basically some drug that's got some correlation with progesterone, I believe. And in this test, they're gonna basically try and get us to sniff something and monitor our brain activity and blood levels and just stuff like that. And it'll be helpful for those who have been in mild car accidents and those who have had concussion on the sporting field, like football, soccer, you name it. And the idea is to help prevent mild brain trauma or something along those lines. So yeah, no gym, no problem. Stay diversified in your grind. And what I've written there, I can utilize this time for extra side hustle, focus, and study. I'm also currently learning a bit more about investments, impact on the Fed of Forex, and international central banks. So basically, to summarize that part, the US Federal Reserve is slowly raising their interest rates, but from what I've seen, other central banks around the world are raising theirs at a higher rate. So on the 1st of February, the RBA, which is the central bank in Australia, they're going to look at raising their interest rates. Like, it's pretty much a given, but we don't really know how much at this point. At least I haven't actually seen it yet. Or I haven't seen anything that would, you know, give me a definitive answer as to what they're going to raise the rates to. But other foreign central banks are probably going to raise their rates at a higher rate than what the US is. Now, as a result, because the US is raising their rates slower than everyone else's, their dollar becomes stronger. So big tech companies who operate internationally, but they have US expenses, they are receiving income from foreign countries, but by the time it gets converted to the US dollar, they're technically getting less because the foreign currencies are weaker, so they're basically getting filtered down in value by the time they get to their US bank account. And then their expenses are in US, obviously. So in a way, they're losing money because of this whole foreign exchange market. Now, that's just a really simple example, and there's probably a little bit more to it, which is what I'm looking into. So actually, I didn't mention it in the other slide, but every single day I will keep up to date with some investment thing. Like, even if there's nothing really going on in the market, I'll just start listening to something else, like some macroeconomic factor, you know, some insight on some new stock that might become handy later. So every day I tick the investment box, which is a graph I'll show you later. But, you know, over that span of these 8 days, because this is something I recently just learned, over that span of those 8 days, I've progressed in one way or another that doesn't involve gym. So anyway, that's that. And the TQQQ leverage, so basically that's an index that tracks the NASDAQ but at triple leverage. So the NASDAQ is like the top 100 tech stocks. And for every dollar that moves, the TQQQ will move $3. So if it goes down by $2, the TQQQ will go down by $6. If the NASDAQ goes up $5, the TQQQ will go up $15. Now, I heard about this a while ago, but the problem is it's actually like not an ideal investment. I'll pop another graph on screen now that shows you why. But long story short, this is just some more investment stuff that I'm progressing in. And that's great because I can't progress in gym, but I'll progress in another area. Now, what else have I written? Not to mention, this science experiment / medical trial can be extremely beneficial to many, potentially saving them from permanent brain trauma. Yeah, self-explanatory. Another progressing thing. So the reason I can't gym, basically, it's just really briefly summarized in this slide here. There are certain levels in your blood markers that can be abnormally skewed as the result of exercise. And the problem is these are correlated with, I guess, unhealthy individuals. So if your blood results come back showing these things, like certain levels are elevated and outside the normal range, because we're not normal, we're gym rats, the scientists and doctors and whoever and nurses will look at that and be like, well, you know, it looks like you're unhealthy, and for legal reasons we can't put you in this test, because if something happens to you, we can't cover our asses because this test is showing that you're unhealthy, even though you're not. It's just because of some acute inflammation due to gym. So on screen now is some more info about that blood work thing. I'm not going to commentate over it because I don't want to bore you guys, and I think this video is going to end up being longer than I wanted to anyway. But, you know, pause it if you want to read it. Basically, blah, 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 science, science, science. It means that I can't gym beforehand. And this slide's also showing the same thing. So yeah, too long didn't read, no gym for a while because I can get paid good dosh, and it gives me time to focus on other areas to give them a much needed boost. So what you're seeing on screen now will be the sort of 5-day span for that test. So if I get past this screening and they check my blood work and it looks like I'm all set to go for this experiment, I rock up on the Tuesday around midday, and they might do some tests and stuff, but I stay there the night, and you basically just stay in like these hospital beds. Like obviously you can get up to go to the toilet, but you're literally not allowed to leave the premises. Now, they've got like a little gaming room and stuff like that, but I'm going to bring my laptop and I'm going to do some work. Now, side note, the new Pokemon game, just to date this video, Legends Arceus, came out on the Friday and I bought it, haven't played it since, so, you know, 2 days, haven't played it. I know some friends who have just basically done nothing but play that game. I really want to play it, but I got to grind. You know, I want to grind more than I want to play the game, but that's an option as well. I'll bring that just in case I feel like having a break, because I've never had a prolonged period of nothing but side hustle and study before, so I don't know how that'll go. But anyway, look, the point is, Tuesday I've got time to just do whatever I want. Wednesday they'll have some tests, obviously, but then I'm still there confined to that same sort of room. The Thursday I get to leave, and then, yeah, obviously I won't be working later that day, so I'll have more time to do side hustle or study stuff. Friday, I'm back at work at the office, and I'll gym if I can. So you'll see on the right, I have to go back on the Sunday. Now, I don't know if this is just a general debrief or they're going to run some more tests. I imagine they'll run more tests, so I probably won't be able to gym here as well. But if not, I'll just study or do something like a side hustle or whatever. And then Saturday, I'm at Woolies, and then Sunday, I'm not, because obviously I have to be at the medical center, and I can't be there and at Woolies at the same time now, can I? So that little text at the bottom, literally don't work for 4 days, still getting paid. So the dollars figures in dark blue are me getting paid for work that I didn't really do. Now, this is because of annual leave. Like, both of my jobs aren't going to sponsor this. And in fact, I don't know if they're 100% pleased. Like, they didn't seem enthusiastic when I told them, but they didn't seem like pissed off or anything. But I guess that's a normal feeling. You're not going to be like, oh, yay, science experiment, or like, oh, for God's sake, a science experiment. So, you know, point is, they're not sponsoring this, so this is getting taken out of my annual leave. But nonetheless, it's me getting money for work I didn't do. So you might be a little bit confused as to why the darker blue figures seem to be higher than the light blue figures, which is The light blue figures are for work I actually do. The reason is because they're put through as annual leave, you get a 17.5% loading, which just means you get paid 17.5% above what your normal rate is. And I think the reason this is a thing is because when they were writing up these awards, which is basically the money they have to pay you, but that'll be another topic for another video. The reason they have that is to help cover some expenses while you're away. So the general assumption is if you take annual leave, you're on a holiday, so they give you a bit of extra money to help pay for things. But that's why I'm getting paid more. Now, I get paid more on the Sunday regardless because the penalty rates are higher, as you would have seen in the other slide. But that's not the point. The point is, I literally don't work for 4 of these days and I still get paid for it, on top of the $1,460 I'll get for completing this little science experiment. Perks of being a W1 employee and not a business owner. I went a little bit over that in this video here. It just talks about, you know, being an employee has its perks over being a business owner, because I'm sure you guys see on YouTube a lot, everyone just shits on W1 employee wages. So W1 is a part of your tax return in Australia, and it basically just lists money you got from your employer. There's a little bit more to it, but that's basically what a W1 employee is. So this is just a really quick side tangent. Eventually it'll probably be its own video, but ever since I started laser hair removal and Botox, which is another part of my aesthetics. So Botox, I don't get fake lips or anything. I just use anti-wrinkle injections. So later in 2021, I started to notice that my forehead was really starting to crease a lot, and I thought it was because I kept glaring at screens. So I get up pretty early in the morning, and especially through winter, when I get to work, there's a lot of bright lights, and when you're at the office, you stare at a screen and you're not fully awake yet. So like, I'm doing it now, but obviously you can't see it. It's where your eyebrows sort of lift up, and that's how the creases were starting to form. And I was talking to my friend about it, and turns out she got anti-wrinkle injections too, so she recommended a good place. So now I get them, and they're working really well. So that's another little trick I might use to preserve my looks, my youthful looks. Not that any of you guys know what I look like. Like, even without the Botox, everyone thought I was like a few years younger than I am. But point is, it's extra money going to another goal. So in a way, this hinders my whole like financial goal in a way. Like, I split it up into like, you know, career, part-time job, gym, professional development, investments, and side hustle. But, you know, I guess money could be a subcategory of them. But the point is, I've spent $3,290 in appearance. Now, we're paying heaps for food and gym memberships as it is. I don't know who pays for your guys' gym memberships and food, but if you're, you know, later in your 20s, chances are you're paying for it yourself, when you could just not pay for a gym membership and you could just buy unhealthy foods, even though they're technically more expensive, but that's another topic for another day. Point is, we're paying all this money for food and a gym membership, and some of us are even paying for performance enhancing drugs, which is not me, and supplements, which is also not really me. Like, I buy protein powder, but I don't use creatine, just use salt. Like, creatine's obviously the most studied thing, but it's really not going to make a night and day difference. And some people use pre-workout. Now, I don't, just because I work out later in the day and I don't want caffeine in my system when I'm trying to go to sleep. So we're paying all this money for that, so why not pay a little bit to improve facial aesthetics, even though I don't get laser in my face. But, you know, it does, having laser hair removal helps mitigate shaving rashes because you don't need to shave as often, and it's just nice. So yeah, preserve youth, age like fine wine and not milk. But that'll probably be a topic for another video. Just wanted to briefly touch on that because it's the whole diversified grind thing. And it's somewhat related to that little schedule I showed you earlier where I had laser on Friday. Because instead of going to laser, I could have gone to gym, but I'm foregoing gym to improve in another area, so it's a diversified grind thing. Even though I did still hang out with my friend, but that's not the point. Now, this slide, a rough outline of my current schedule. So I had this snippet on another video of mine, I can't remember which one, but that's basically what my week will look like if all goes to plan. Now, the text box in red and yellow, study and side hustle, they're very interchangeable. Like, I'll just work on one or the other depending on what I feel needs work at the time. But, you know, it's not set in stone. Work and gym are set in stone though, for the most part. If I got something on Tuesday, maybe I'll gym Wednesday, Thursday, Friday instead, and then have Saturday off, and then gym Sunday, Monday instead. And then, I don't know, figure out how to get back in the new cycle the next week or whatever. Or maybe that gym session will just have to be foregone. But the point is, that's a rough outline of a normal week in my life at the moment. But as you can see from that bottom line, ticking numerous boxes each week. Once again, the diversified grind. That whole thing isn't just, you know, career and gym, or for example, you know, it's diversified. So here's another little chart I just made. It basically just summarizes that in a more visually digestible manner. Is that how you say it? Doesn't matter, you get the point. So, you know, every Monday I will tick a box at my career because I'll have my corporate job. I'll tick a box for professional development because I normally study on a Monday night. And obviously investments, which is every day I'll keep up to date because most people aren't doing that. So I won't go through the whole thing, but you can just pause and read it for yourself. Obviously, you can see every day some box of some sort is being ticked because the grind is diversified. If I did nothing but, for example, just work and gym, well, what am I doing when I'm not at work or not at gym? Like, I have to be put on hold until, you know, my muscles are recovered for gym, for example, or until work starts again. But if I'm more diversified, I can keep going, just in different areas. Now, to finish off the video, this part will probably be quite long, so it's not like I'm wrapping it up, but the last segment of this video is going to be some examples of people doing things, but their grind isn't super diversified, and we're going to go through the pros and cons of it. So, in example 1, we've got someone who has a career and they do some sort of study. Now, the reason I didn't just say any old job is because some jobs, you kind of just, once you have like a degree or like your base trade level, it kind of caps out there. Like, there's obviously little bits and pieces here, but the example I can think of most thoroughly are accountants and lawyers, because we need to do extra stuff after uni. Like, we have to, if we want to actually get anywhere. Like, we can get the base grad jobs just fine, but if you want to actually go further and get the higher, like, prestigious job titles and extra salary increments and all that juicy stuff, you have to do extra study. And I believe it's the same for engineers as well. Point is, we've got some career grind person here. So they work 9 to 5, possibly OT, you know, Monday to Friday, and they study in their free time. So the positives of this, they've got a prestigious career and they've got good income. Not bad, you know, no one's going to be really complaining about that. Now, the negatives of this, though, they're going to be out of shape. If you don't gym and you just, like, even if it's an active job, you're not going to stimulate the hypertrophic requirements that your muscles need. I don't know if that's even a word, but the point is, no one's going to get jacked off just working any old job. And yeah, that can cause health issues later, so fork out money to fix them. Yeah, if you've got health issues, it's going to cost a lot more to fix it later on in life than it is to just stop it from becoming a problem in the first place. As the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's a lot easier to stop something from becoming a problem than it is to fix it once it has become a problem. So this health thing can not only be like due to obesity, but just even your joints and stuff. Like, the amount of people I hear complaining about how they got a sore back all the time is just nuts. So my back gets a little bit sore at my Woolworths job. Now, I know how to deadlift properly, obviously, but sometimes when you're bending over to pick up crates and stuff, sometimes you, like, because it's so far out in front of your body, like when you're deadlifting, you've got like a perfectly weighed out 20 kilo bar for the most part. There are other bars, but most of us are deadlifting with the 20 kilo bars. I've got perfectly calibrated plates. They're pretty much the same size no matter which gym you go to. You can bring the bar really close to your shins, which is the main thing. The further the bar travels away from your shins, the more your lower back gets worked, which is why they say bring the bar closer to your shins. But the crates can't really be super close to my shins here, so no matter how good my form is, my lower back's still going to take a bit of a beating. Now, it's a little bit sore after the weekend, but it's fine come Tuesday. It might be a different story if I did this full time, but even then, I train my glutes and my upper back pretty well, and obviously other opposing muscle groups, just overall health and whatnot, and overall aesthetics. The point is, people take a beating on their lower back because they don't actually have the muscle in the other areas to shoulder that sort of burden, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I'm not going to go into it because this isn't a gym tips video. Basically, all you need to know is if you have lower back pain, try training your glutes a bit more, especially, but just another whole gym workout routine in general, and watch your form when you lift stuff. So anyway, the next point I've written here, income tied to lack of time. So because you don't have like a side hustle online, or you have something like investment knowledge, your income is tied to time, which means when you want to get money, you have to trade time for it. Whereas with a side hustle and investments, you can kind of do things passively, but I'll go into that in another example, but that's got its own pros and cons. But the point is, your income is always tied to time. Some people don't like that. I don't mind working. I actually like it, but I know a lot of people don't. And that last point, lack of diverse friendship circles. So you make a lot of friends at a second job, providing it's at some place that's got a lot of employees. Like if you got 2 jobs with a small group, like I guess your circle could be closer. But the point is, having only 1 job means you've only really got that one set of friends, because I don't know how old you guys are, but the further you stray from high school, the less sort of friends you end up with, because everyone tends to go their own paths. Now, that's not the same for everyone, but in the vast majority of cases, you will notice this. So you'll actually make new friends through a secondary job. That doesn't have to be a negative. I just put it here. It's just some food for thought. It's a good way to look at having a second job as well. You make more friends if you're likable, or if they're likable, but I digress. Now, issues. If you get banned from your profession, which involves like getting your professional license revoked, etc., what else do you have going on in your life? Because if you can't work in your profession, where else are you going to work? Like, you don't have the second job, like a skill set to use, you can't utilize your skill set from that second job to get another job, or work more at that second job, because you don't have the second job in the first place. And obviously there's no point continuing study, and if you're banned from that profession, you're probably banned from that study anyway. Now, a scenario where this might happen is what I've written there: can't say no to your boss at all since she pays your bills. Like, if your boss is going to do something shady, like, yeah, we're taught about this a lot in accounting. It's like, oh, don't change the amounts on the reports, or don't change the timing of these reports to make our profits look better in this period for the shareholders, and blah, 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 blah. They're like, no, you must stay integral to your profession and blah, blah, blah. Don't let them corrupt your professional judgment and all that. But if they're paying your bills, you're going to probably go with the flow. At least that's what I have seen from what most of my friends have said, and that's honestly probably what I would do too. If I was in this situation, it might be a bit different just because I have other streams of income. But even then, look, I don't know. The point is, if you get banned from your profession, then what else do you have going in your life? If you had, investments, maybe you can look at them a bit more. Maybe you can make some more money off that. If you're a gym rat, maybe you can gym a bit more. If you had a side hustle, you can work on that a bit more. I hope you get the point of this. If you just sort of pigeonhole yourself into one particular area, if something goes wrong, you're a little bit screwed. Now, example 2, we have a gym rat who works part-time. So they're basically a gym rat with no real path in life, as crude as that is to put it. Now, their scenario, they gym around the part-time job. So, if their part-time job says work 10 or 3, they're not going to go to the gym at 11 now, are they? They have to work at that part-time job. Now, in this particular example, I'm using a low barrier to entry job as the assumption. There are some part-time jobs that have higher barrier to entry. So when I did my internship at the tax office, we had one lady who would work Monday, Tuesday, and every second Wednesday. So that's part-time, obviously, but obviously not everyone can just waltz into a job at the tax office. Now, obviously she did this because she was very highly skilled at her job and she got to choose her hours, and she had like a kid and all that. I know some places aren't going to be this flexible, but the point is, in this particular example, we're using a low barrier to entry job. Now, the positives of this, they're probably aesthetic AF, hey? And they get to enjoy the identity of being the gym rat. So I've had this earlier in my life where, in my circle of friends, I was the gym guy, even though I didn't really look like it, but that's a story for another video. I've probably actually talked about that in another video, to be honest. Point is, they probably look pretty good and they're probably the gym rat of the group. Now, the negatives, when you get past the age of 25, you start to lose that sort of novelty and quote fame. Like, no one really gives a shit if you're the ripped guy at like 26, but you got nothing else going on for you. Now, that could depend on the area you're in, but from what I've noticed, the gym boys tend to get less and less like important as you go on, and the shift for other people tends to go towards other areas. But that's just what I've seen. And that last bit, at the mercy of the overall economy. So, for example, that low barrier to entry job, if some government implements some policy that kind of cucks the company you work for or the business and they have to have layoffs, well, you're probably one of the first ones out the door, or at least you're at high chance of being out the door. But if you're working in a higher barrier to entry job, this is less likely to happen. Now, that's a very blanket statement, but I think you get the point. Because they're doing nothing but gym, their finances are a lot more likely to get cucked over. So as I've written there, issues, unfortunately, you can't flex your gains to the broker and get a home loan approval. Now, I'll elaborate on this point in one of the next examples. I talk about, gym influences. Also, the lower the barrier to entry at your job, the more easily you are replaced. You're at the mercy of your immediate seniors. So it's like your bosses can do whatever they want with you, and if you don't do it, then you lose your income source. Company restructure, Woolworths 2019. So yeah, in 2019, Woolworths basically cut a lot of manager jobs and gave a lot of them to one specific manager, if that makes sense. So they've just cut some manager jobs and given that role to another existing manager. So yeah, it was kind of a shit show, and it kind of still is. Well, not kind of, it still is a shit show. But a lot of managers lost their jobs. And now that's a bit of a different example because managers at like a multi-billion-dollar company are a little bit higher barrier to entry job than most. But you get the point. I hope you get the point. Another one is, I just watched a video today, and it was something to do with some YouTube channel called College Humor, and it was made by Sunny V2. It's a great video, go check it out. Basically, their business was bought up by this parent company in 2006, and then that company pulled the funding in about 2020, so they had to lay off about 90 staff. So now, you could argue that those jobs weren't low barrier to entry jobs, but if any of those staff had like some higher barrier to entry position, they will probably have no trouble in switching jobs. But if they were, I guess, running a business through that company, if you watch the video, that comment might make a bit more sense. But if you're running a sort of business through that company, then you may have a hard time setting up that kind of income again. But even that point will be elaborated later in the video. Now, the examples I used may be a little bit of a stretch, but the overall point I'm getting at is, like, yeah, this is a little bit diversified, but not really. So diversify your grind a little bit more. Example 3, gym plus side hustle slash business. So this is a similar situation to the previous example, but instead of a part-time job, they've become like a cringe-fluencer. So they gym literally whenever. I don't really like when the fitness YouTubers say no excuses when they don't have a job, they have no obligations apart from maybe some meetings with some business owners or something to enhance their brand. But usually they'll probably schedule that around gym, or it'll be done online after their gym session, and they can usually get all the sleep they want. But that's, yeah, I'm going to stop there before I go on another tangent. They get paid to work out and flex and promote shit, which is pretty much true. A lot of them just promote some garbage supplement or some product that doesn't work, or just pimp their apparel or whatever. So, positives of this. It's an easy life, at least from what I can see. Obviously, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's some work to do, but no one's going to really be complaining about getting paid to work out, you know. Basically getting paid to do less than what I did when I was at uni. So yeah, I gymmed a lot when I was at uni, but I had study and part-time work. So if I was getting paid just to gym back then, boy, that would have been the life. So the negatives, inconsistent income, that comes with, the whole business and influencer thing. There's no guarantee that everyone's going to buy a shirt when they post about it, or some supplement. You might have some impressionable young teens who are just starting out in the industry who think that buying that supplement will make them look the way they do. But, there's no guarantee of this. Whereas if you work a regular job, you know where your money's coming from. But you could argue that, well, you couldn't argue, you can make the case that no matter how hard you work in an employee job, you get paid the same, whereas your effort is rewarded in a business. But, that's not the point of this particular example. The point I'm getting at is it's inconsistent income. Now, at the mercy of the internet, yeah, God forbid you make one controversial video and the whole internet gets on your back about it and you lose sponsors, you lose viewership, like one minor slip up and you're pretty much screwed. Like, you slip up at your job, depending on how big it is, it's probably not going to be a big deal at the end of the day, and you'll probably still have your job. But yeah, even a minor slip up in this day and age, especially on the internet, oh boy, that can cost you. So, issues. Not only mega cringe, yeah, goddamn influencers cringe, but the originality wears off. So, there are some videos I've seen, how to get shredded in 2022. Like, why does the fact that it's 2022 make any difference? Like, I guess if it's some newbies who think that there's some new, better way to get shredded, which there's not. There's just human biology, and that's how it works, and work with it. Yeah, anyway. Another channel I used to watch a lot, like I don't really watch gym fitness YouTubers anymore because all my spare time spent like studying on a side hustle or, keeping up to date with investments. But this guy I used to watch, Matt Does Fitness, he kept making these videos and they were like, I ate so-and-so, I ate Macca's or KFC or In-N-Out or whatever for 24 hours and here's what happened. So it was just a little cheap way to get a lot of views. Like, we all know that if you eat like junk for one day, it's not going to matter, but I guess he was just milking views from all the newbies. And I guess some people thought it was entertaining. Like, I did watch one of them, and then I watched another, and then I watched another, and I realized what the point of it was. And like, do you really want to be relying on your income doing stuff like that? Like, I mean, it sounds like I'm hating. Like, I mean, I like the guy, but you can't tell me that that's really good content. Anyway, yeah, not really a lot to offer at the end of the day. So there's only a certain amount of things you can say in relation to the whole fitness realm before you actually run out of good info to give. Like, soon I'll be releasing a video and it's basically my gym journey. And in it, like, I've done a body transformation video before, which I'll probably repost on this channel, but this little gym journey thing is going to be an abridged version of that. So it'll be a lot shorter. And I'm going to basically give the general tips that help you with gym, like how to properly train and a proper decent diet. And once you get those down, there's little bits of nuances here and there to tweak, but the overall picture doesn't really change. So once you've done all those sort of videos, what else are you going to post? So you have to sort of get creative or have to start reposting the same sort of stuff. And yeah, I just don't see the longevity in that, to be honest. Now, another one is publicity is a bad thing. Actually, I'll circle back to the longevity is questionable. So I know a lot of the big fitness YouTubers who were sort of big back in the day still kind of have a viewership just because they get new viewership from the new people entering the fitness industry now. But if you watch a lot of Sunny V2 videos, he talks about the decline of some certain people. And I think that if you purely rely on this sort of stuff, I don't know about the overall longevity. Now, I could be wrong, but it's just something to think about. Like, I'm not hating on it or anything. Like, I admire those people. Like, I used to watch them all the time. And now, like, I'm not saying that to cover my ass. Like, I really did. But yeah, a lot of people can make good, stable incomes through businesses. But the problem is I see it marketed as the only real way. And I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being realistic. A lot of people actually won't make money for a long time through a business, if at all. Anyway, the next point, publicity is a bad thing, or is it? So some people don't want that sort of public attention. Like, they don't want to be able to just walk down the street and everyone knows who they are. So hence why my face is blurred. You can't really see it in any of these slides, obviously, but in some of my gym pics, obviously I'll blur the face. I don't really, I want this to be separate from who I am, but anyway, not the point. Something that was once fun is now tied down to your income and paying the bills. So yeah, I noticed this too when I became a personal trainer. The joys of working out they weren't there anymore. Like, I felt like I just had to work out just to keep my physique going so I could market myself as a personal trainer, even though I started to look like crap, but that's elaborated in this little gym journey video, as well as that body transformation video I've already done. So anyway, moving on. Example 4, we've got someone who works full-time and part-time, so they just work 2 jobs basically. So they work Monday to Friday at the full-time job, and they have a second job. Now, this could also be just a casual job. I got a mate who does this, but he doesn't work every weekend. Sometimes he'll work one odd weekend here, or just a Saturday, or just a Sunday, or just a weeknight here and there. So it's not like set in stone, but it is still there. So positives, you've got various sources of income. God forbid you lose one of your jobs, that's okay, you got another. And you're making more money than the norm. So obviously you're going to probably make more money than someone who only has one job. Now, that'll depend on how much you're getting paid at the one job, but you get the point. Negatives, your income's tied to time. Yeah, because you don't have the side hustle or investments or, passive income streams. So when you need money, you're going to have to go and trade your time for it. Out of shape. Now, there's a question mark here because I guess if you work an active job or active jobs, you can basically hover around your maintenance caloric intake, but you won't really be super aesthetic either. So yeah, that's kind of up in the air. Like, you won't be aesthetic, but you could possibly still be in like decent shape compared to, the Gen Pop. Now, the issues here, if you cannot work for whatever reason, you don't have an income besides, if you're not working because you're on annual leave or you got sick leave to cover you, or even long service leave. But if your job is physical, you may cause damage to your body. So I don't know if you guys have noticed this too, but a lot of tradies, their bodies tend to really deteriorate later in life if they don't gym. They can get away with it when they're younger, but all that wear and tear just does so much damage on their joints and whatnot. Whereas if you go to the gym, because obviously this guy is just working 2 jobs, there's no gym in this grind. The gym will strengthen your joints and tendons and surrounding muscles that help prevent injuries. So yeah, your body can take a beating if those jobs are physical. So on one hand, the physical jobs will keep you relatively in decent shape, not aesthetic, but okay shape. But at the cost of that, they'll put a lot of damage on the rest of your body. in terms of your joints and Example 5, we've got some investments only guy, so your classic day trader. So for those of you who don't know, a day trader are those people who stare at the stock charts all day and they put money in here and they think it's going to go up, then they sell, and then they sell money out of here, put money in here, and they look at the charts and, you know, your classic Wall Street sort of thing. Now what they do, they spend all day in front of the computer screen looking at charts. So yeah, I just said that. This can be stocks or crypto. The stock market actually closes, which can be a good thing, which means you can get a break from it. There are things that happen in the after hours, but most of your work's done when the markets are open. Now, crypto markets are open 24/7, so, you know, pick your poison, I guess. It's just something to note. Not that any day trader would probably be watching this video anyway, but that's just some food for thought for you guys. You know, I guess just in case you were wondering, well, does a day trader look at the chart all the time? Well, it depends. If they're in the crypto market, yes. If they're in the stock market, you know, they can probably get away with taking a break from the screens. Positives, you get to be at home. And I guess you could argue you don't have to work for your money, even though you're using your brain to pick the markets. Like, you don't have a boss, I guess. That could be another positive. Like, I know I didn't really have much to say for the positives here. Like, there are some, but like, there's just too many negatives for me, which I'll go over now. Volatile, inconsistent, not guaranteed income. Yeah, like, enough said there. You're at the mercy of Jay Powell. So Jerome Powell is the head of the Federal Reserve. So he's the one who picks and chooses what they're going to do with the interest rates, you know, in accordance with his team. But he said that they're going to raise them now. And as a result, a lot of stocks have just gone down. So if you're a day trader, you're not really having a good few weeks. And if you're looking at the computer screen all day, you're definitely out of shape. So issues here. Since you're sitting at a desk all day, you're obviously not moving your body, but you're probably eating a lot sitting there. Yeah, you know, we all do that. If we all just sit down a lot of us tend to overeat. And you're not expending many calories, obviously, because you're not moving around, and you get fatter way faster. And you're statistically unlikely to make money. Like, I don't know what the actual stats are, because everyone just says 95% won't make money, and then some say 99%. But the general consensus is most people won't. And especially in a bear market. So a bear market is basically when nothing's going up and everything's just going down in terms of like the stock prices and stuff. Like, it's harder to make money in a quote bear market. So yeah, in a bear market, what are you going to do? Short everything. So shorting is basically just betting on stocks going down. But the problem is sometimes they jump up a bit and then they just keep going down. Like, obviously it's not like a straight downward line. There's like there's little zigzags. But, you know, the point is, what are you really going to do when there's not favorable economic conditions if you're just all about investments and you didn't diversify your grind? So example 6, full-time or a part-time job and investments. So you're not as glued to the screen. So this person, they have a job of some sort and they are all about that investment grind. So they work at a job and they spend time not at the job watching the markets, or maybe they do, I don't know. Now positives, they got multiple sources of income because they actually have a job and they're getting passive income through, I guess it's not passive because you got to work for it in the markets, but it's income that you don't need to physically go to a job for. So multiple sources of income and potentially more money than most. Now potentially because, once again, how likely are you to make profitable gains in the whole investment space if you're day trading and whatnot? You know, probably not. Like, you will over time, but if you're going to have investments as one of your main grind areas and just have a job, chances are you're probably going to put a lot of effort into investing, which means you're probably more swinging towards the day trader side of things. So the negatives of this one, possibly waste hard-earned time for money work. So basically your main income stream, your job, you have to show up to work for it, and you could be wasting this by making bad trades, especially because you're not as familiar with the environment. So obviously if you don't spend all your time doing this, you're going to know less than the person who does. So you could probably be making worse decisions because you're not as informed. Now you're out of shape because there's no gym here, and your friendship circle is not as diversified because you've only got the one job. Again, we went over this before, but like that could be a positive or a negative, or maybe you don't care, but I just chuck it in anyway. So yeah, the issues, I've pretty much just gone over them, but yeah, you could lose your hard-earned money, and when there's a bear market, one of your main focus areas on your grind, it's not really going to do so well. So example 7, we've got a university student who works part-time and they go to the gym. So this was me around 2015 to 2019, and this was surprisingly common around my area, but I'll touch on that shortly. Now, they study at university, they study full-time. Technically full-time is 3 or 4 units, which is technically meant to eat up most of your time, but we all know uni students, we don't really do that. The point is their main focus is study. They don't work full-time or anything. They go to the gym during their spare time. Like obviously you're not going to go to the gym when you're at work. That doesn't make sense. And they also work 15 to 25-ish hours a week. Some might work more, some might work less, but I found that this is pretty much the sweet spot for most people, and it was roughly the sweet spot for me as well. Now the positive of this, standard late teens, early 20s grind, yeah, like you find you can talk to a lot of people about the same sort of stuff. Hey, what are you studying? I'm studying this. Oh, I'm studying this. Oh, I go to the gym. Which gym do you go to? Oh yeah, what are you training now? What's your diet like? Oh yeah, you work too? Where do you work? Oh, I work here. I work these hours. So I guess it's easier to talk to people, whether that's a positive for you or not, but we'll move on. Source of income, yeah, like you actually have a source of income. Some people don't. Arming yourself with an education, higher barrier to entry. So yeah, the higher barrier to entry thing, for example, I'd keep using accountants because like I am one, it's the one I'm most familiar with, but not anyone can't just walk off the street and take my job from me. They need a degree. So there's like a whole 3-year, a whole 24 unit gap at a university that separates me from, I guess, most people in my particular field. Now other people have degrees too, but not in this particular field. So you see how I have a higher barrier to entry job. So I'm less likely to be replaced because there's less people to replace me. Whereas at my supermarket job, it's a bit different because I've been there 9.5 years. So I'm a little bit more of a senior, but I don't need to go do an education for my job. You don't really need any prior experience. Like it's kind of changed lately. Like it's kind of hard to get into Woolies unless you've had a job before. Usually most of our teenage hires have had jobs at like Macca's before. But the point is, there's a lot higher barrier to entry for your career when you're studying, so that's a positive here. And you're fit, unless you get injured, obviously, because you go to the gym. Now, the negatives here, you can feel like you're not getting anywhere, can feel like the competition is too strong. Yeah, because as I said before, you'd be surprised how many people are doing this. So you feel like, well, I'm doing all this and everyone else is, so, what's the point? We don't seem like we're getting anywhere. We're all just still working. We're all just still hanging out. We're going to the gym. None of us look super aesthetic. We look all right. Like obviously there's a handful that look good, but most of them, they go to the gym, but they don't look out of shape, but they don't look like an Instagram model either. All this gym work, you can feel like, what's the point? You can be halfway through your degree and you're just sick of it. You're like, oh, what's the point? There's so much more to go. I don't know if this is going to be worth it. A lot of the negatives here just tend to be like psychological, really. A lot of people can feel like this is really an overwhelming schedule as well, so that's another negative. So the issues here, although this is a surprisingly common schedule for a lot of people around my area, they go about it the wrong way. So yeah, when they go to university, they choose a degree that the job market doesn't actually require. So I'll touch on this in another video, but all you really need to know is when you go to university, just because you get a degree doesn't mean you're more employable. You have to get a degree in a field that they actually have a demand for. So engineering, accounting, lawyer, the doctor, stuff like that, stuff that there are actually jobs for. You can just go into Seek and check out jobs. or you can go onto the government websites and check what job areas they're projecting growth in. If you do teaching or nursing, you're almost guaranteed a job. Like, I really don't know anyone who didn't get a job in teaching or nursing as soon as they graduated. Like, I know people who took a little bit longer to get a job. Like, for example, I am one of them. Like, you're not guaranteed a job when you do things like accounting and law. But if you work hard enough, you pretty much are, because eventually everyone above you will get a job. Like, anyone with, better grades, better qualifications, better at job interviews and stuff like that, eventually they'll all have jobs. So then they won't be competition anymore, and another job will pop up, and now you are the best thing on the market, and then you will get that job. So like, eventually you will, but nurses and teachers, they're almost guaranteed to get a job. So that's something to look at. Whether you enjoy those or not, different story, but just some food for thought. So yeah, with gym, I find, a lot of people go, but they tend to half-ass it, which again leads into the other previous thought, like, oh, well, what's the point of all this? You're not going to go anywhere. Well, put in the actual work, learn, train hard, learn about your nutrition and training and all that stuff, and you'll see the progress. Part-time work, some people not working enough, question mark. So I wrote that as a question mark. I guess that can vary. Some people maybe only work 10 hours a week and that's enough for them. You could work more and have a bit more money to pay for, like, just have some extra money put aside for a rainy day. If you're working 10 hours a week, by the time you pay for things like your gym membership and travel to uni and maybe just dinner with your friends and stuff, you're not really going to have a lot of money. I guess it might not be an issue, but I thought I'd just chuck that in just as a talking topic. Drop out for the job. I've seen a couple people drop out of uni because, again, they thought, what's the point? And then they just dropped out and worked at their part-time job. Now, I wasn't really super tempted at one point, but the thought did creep into my head, I'll admit. You will regret it in the long run, for the most part. Like, not everyone will regret that, but I find that most people do. And this part-time job hinders other areas. So I guess if you got a crappy part-time job with some douche managers, they might expect you to work certain hours that really just screw with your gym schedule and study schedule and university classes, maybe. But again, that's just another talking point. It's just something to mention. Now, last example 8. Now, this person works full-time in a career that has broad horizons and is very stable. So broad horizons is like they can pretty much do a lot of other different jobs. They're not just pigeonholed into one specific job description, if that makes sense. They work part-time in a job that is arguably more stable. So yeah, this part-time job is for a multi-billion-dollar company, which is Woolworths. Goes to the gym, and they're undertaking a post-tertiary education. So not only have they armed themselves with a 24-unit degree, which is your bachelor's degree, but they're also arming themselves with more of an education. So eventually the requirements to replace them in the job market are a lot higher. So their job security is, even higher. This guy also keeps up to date with investments. So when there's good opportunities, he knows when to pounce on them, as well as the fact that he's starting to learn this stuff now, even if he doesn't do much. Like, he does stuff with the information now, but in 5 years, once he really knows a lot, perhaps he can make a lot more passive income through it. But he's, ticking the boxes early. And this guy also has a side hustle. I mean, you've seen it on screen, but this guy is me. So a quick rundown: accountant full-time, Monday to Friday, supermarket part-time, Saturday to Sunday. I gym 4 to 5 times a week, approximately 6 to 8 hours a week. I study CPA, it's kind of like a master's, and I just do this whenever. Keeps up to date with the latest stock, crypto, macroeconomic changes. That word shouldn't be that hard to say. And he works on a side hustle / passion project whenever, and that's this thing, that's these videos you're watching right now. Now, the positives here: stable income sources. Yeah, obviously accountants, they're in demand and they're higher barrier to entry, so, relatively stable. God forbid I lose my job. Oh well, I just saw on Seek there were 10 other jobs that I probably could have gotten on Seek. Like, like I would have gotten interviews. I don't know if I would have gotten them, but you know, the point is, it's not like this is the only job in the whole world for me. And then obviously working at Woolies, like even if you lose that job somehow, I have 9.5 years of retail experience that can transfer to most warehouses, even Coles or Aldi, like other supermarkets, or even just any other retail store, you know, so they're relatively stable income sources. And obviously Woolworths, ASX 200 company, they're just going to keep growing. I think Woolworths was voted Australia's second or third most favorite brand recently. I'm not sure. I'll pop it up if I can find it, but I don't know if I can. It was just a thing I was just perusing through. Anyway, slowly increasing market value, barrier to replacement. That's just another way of saying barrier to entry. So obviously if I've got a degree and a post-degree education, I'm a lot harder to replace because not a lot of people have this. Fit for a 25-year-old. Yeah, I used to be pretty aesthetic. I still kind of am, but I'm nowhere near my peak. And, you know, fit for a 25-year-old because I've put in the work at the gym and I haven't just let myself deteriorate. Slowly gaining skills to create passive income. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, the investments before. Always progressing in one area or another whenever another is compromised. So that circles back to the whole I can't gym because I'm doing this study, but that's all right, I can do other shit. Now the negatives, very low room for error. So what this means is I can't really have a lot of things go wrong. If my car breaks down on the way to work one day, like that's going to be a massive pain in the ass. Or if some shit happens when I'm driving back home from work, then I miss out on a gym schedule or a study schedule or something. Like I don't really have a lot of room just for unexpected events. Need to plan weeks in advance for anything out of the ordinary. Yeah, whenever I have a social event, I have to really plan it in advance. So a lot of my friends who hang out with me, they work around me, so they're great because they know I'm on that grind. They don't know about this side hustle, but they know I work the 7 days a week, I go to the gym, and I do the study thing. They don't really know about investments, but I don't think that doesn't really take up time. It's kind of like I'm doing that while I'm doing something else, if that makes sense. The point is I have to book in weeks in advance whenever I want to do something. Like I need to get my car serviced really soon, but the problem is I haven't factored in for any car services in the next 3 weeks. So at the earliest, I have to get it done 4 weeks in advance. But, you know, I'm not going to go on a tangent about that. I know no one cares. Now, that last point there, inability to maximize any one area. Yeah, I touched over this in another video I made before. Basically, obviously, the more you do, the less optimized each one will be. Now, I can't really optimize my full-time job, my part-time job any more than I can. I could gym a bit more, but there's very diminished returns on that extra gym sesh that I could use in another area. Now, studying, I also touched on this in the other video, but basically, yeah, I could study more and get better grades, but ultimately it doesn't really matter just as long as I pass for this. But it's elaborated in the other video if you care to watch that, because this video is definitely like at least 40 minutes at this point. So I'm going to try and not ramble on too much longer. So can't optimize my jobs much more than I can. No point optimizing gym a bit more. Study doesn't really need to. Investments, like I guess I could learn some things quicker, but eventually I'll know everything I want to know about it, kind of like how I am with gym at this point. But I guess I could be pumping out more videos, but if I just stop everything and just pump out videos, then the main reason a lot of you guys follow me is because I've got a very unique grind and you can apply that situation to yours. If I just stopped doing all that, all the stuff I'm doing, then there'd be no point in following me really. So that's why this thing's in a question mark, like inability to maximize any one area. Like, yeah, but is there a point in maximizing any of these areas? If you try to be perfect at one thing, you'll miss out on being very good at many other things. So as for issues, one bad night's sleep makes you question your grind. Yeah, every time I have a bad night's sleep at work the next day, because, you know, I'm always at work. And if I have a bad night's sleep when I have the day off work, then obviously I'll just sleep in, you know what I mean? But whenever I have a bad night's sleep and I'm at work, I really start to question myself, I'm like, damn, what's the point of this? I could just like have my weekends off, or I've got a gym tonight, why don't I just go home and just have a quick nap or something? Like, I know it's just the exhaustion talking, like normal me would never say something like that, but it's just annoying having those thoughts. And yeah, you don't really have any room for error. So most people have a bad night's sleep, no big, you can catch up on it, but I really have to sort of shift things around. Like, I have to shorten gym sessions here and there, and I have to really make sure I'm in bed early to make up for it. So yeah, it goes back to the very low room for error thing. FOMO parties. I thought I'd just touch on this. Yeah, every Saturday night, well, like by the time I'm in bed early on a Saturday night because I got to get up early for work on Sunday morning. But whenever I just quickly go onto Snapchat, before I start work, and I just see everyone's at parties and stuff, and you're like, damn, I could be there. But, you take a step back and you're like, well, personally, I don't think they're that fun anyway. But, that's just some food for thought if you guys are looking at getting into the really diversified grind yourself. These are the things you got to miss out on, and these are the things you got to be weary of. Like, you may get FOMO of all the people having fun, quote, at parties, but in a few years they're going to have FOMO on not being as financially well off or aesthetic, or as further ahead in their career as you guys will be, or ahead in your business, or whatever your grind areas are going to be. Feel like you're missing out on career/gym from LinkedIn and Insta. Yeah, I got some friends who are really ripped. Like we were sort of on the same level in 2019, but then I slipped off because I really went ahead in my career and they didn't. But damn, they look good, and I'm like, I could have looked like that too if I had just stuck with a gym thing. But you got to take a step back. The diversified grind. And same with LinkedIn. I got a few friends who are really ahead in their career. There's this one guy I went to university with, and now he's like a director of some hedge fund. So I don't know what he's making, but he's very prestigious career and pays very well. And you're like, damn, if I had studied as hard as he did throughout uni, and I wasn't doing all this gym thing and just screwing myself up, which will be elaborated. It's elaborated in this video here. But like, damn, if I had tried as hard as he did and didn't gym, I could be in that position. But again, diversified grind. If some crap happens to his hedge fund that he works for, he doesn't really have a lot left going. Now, those two situations aren't me hating. Like, the ripped guy looks fantastic. The hedge fund guy, fantastic, very prestigious. Like, I'm jealous, really. But again, my whole point is the diversified grind. Just hedge yourself against other crap that pops up in life. So the takeaway message from all of this: the more you do, the further ahead you'll slowly get. So in that little thumbnail, which I'm sure you've seen pop up throughout the video, there's that little calendar thing, and there's like little question marks for the person who just has work and gym, whereas the calendar on the left always has something going on. So they're slowly getting ahead because they've sort of diversified their grind. And currently I can't gym, but no matter. I've got study/investments/side hustle to focus on while I can't gym. If I couldn't work, it would be the same story. If I had no study, I've got side hustle. If I don't feel like doing side hustle work, well, I'll study/I'll look at more investment stuff, and maybe I'll pick up an extra shift if they offer it. There's always some sort of grind I can be doing. Now, it's important to note, don't do 10 things at once. If I was trying to learn an instrument, learn how to sing, learn a foreign language, and learn how to fix a car or something as well, I'd have extra to do whenever one area of the grind is compromised. But just for an example, I might only have 2 pages of my study notes done, whereas I've got 50 done at the moment. I would have gotten maybe 1 video out this month, whereas I've gotten around 6, but one of them's not really a video, it's just a sort of very low effort. It's kind of like a timestamp for my life that I posted, but this was before I started getting subs, so yeah, don't watch that video. It's like 1 minute and 43 seconds. It's like CPA Australia tax or something. Don't watch it. And I probably wouldn't have learned why some big tech stocks prices are dropping. So yeah, that's kind of what I touched on before. You can just pause and read if you want. So yeah, I mean, the other areas, that I just mentioned, those 4 just random examples, they're nice, but at this point, there's not really much point. I should probably just stick to my forte, stick to what I'm good with. Now, the last note, a career, extra study to supplement that career, an extra stable source of income, which is my second job at Woolworths, keeping up to date within the investment space, going to the gym, and having a side hustle is just my way of diversifying my grind. I'm sure there are others. I can only speak from my personal experience. Perhaps you can do more. You can do other areas of your own grind, or you could even do less. But the ultimate point is to diversify your grind. So I hope you got the point of all that. Don't just do like one main thing, because if that thing falls, you're not really going to have much else to fall back on. I won't talk for much longer, but I believe you get the point. Diversify your grind, and remember, we're all going to make it. That is all.